Welcome back to the Deep Dive. A very warm welcome to all the C9 followers joining us, whether you're on the podcast feed or our business page. I'm Lex.
And I'm Vera.
And today we're kicking off what I think is a really high-stakes mission. It's specifically for Australian business owners and C-level executives.
It absolutely is. We're tackling what is really a silent business killer.
And what's that?
Disconnected software systems, the ones that are, quietly draining resources, stopping you from scaling, and just stifling growth.
Okay, let's get straight into that because we've been looking at sources that reveal just how big this integration crisis is right here in Australia. So for an average mid-sized firm,
Yeah.
how bad is it?
It's a huge problem. And it's hiding in plain sight. Our sources confirm that the average mid-size Aussie company is juggling something like 371 different software applications.
371.
Yep, think about that. But here's the real kicker. Less than 29% of them are properly integrated. They're just these expensive, isolated islands of data.
So not even 1 in 3 are actually talking to each other. That kind of friction must create, well, massive financial damage.
It does, and this is why this is so relevant to your bottom line. Forget the IT budget for a moment, just the operational cost. Businesses are losing upwards of $50,000 a year.
$50,000 per what?
Per major integration failure. That's from manual data entry, from errors, and, from all the missed opportunities.
So while you're losing 50 grand just fighting your own systems, what are your competitors doing?
Well, the sources show a pretty terrifying gap. The competitors who fix this, they're achieving 78% faster feature launch velocity.
78% faster.
That's the difference between leading the market and, frankly, becoming irrelevant by 2026. This isn't just about tech. It's about survival.
So our mission today is to unpack that and to show how this API-first strategy is the roadmap out of all this chaos.
Exactly.
Let's start with that chaos. You call it the brutal truth. What happens when you buy all these best-of-breed systems and just hope for the best?
Yeah, let's make it real. I want to talk about a Melbourne manufacturing company we looked at. Let's call them Aussie Tech. 12 million in revenue, about 35 employees.
Okay.
They had all the right gear, a modern ERP, great CRM, solid e-commerce platform. But because nothing was connected, their operations team was basically acting as expensive human middleware.
So take me through a day. What does 8.0 a.m. look like for their ops manager?
It's just constant firefighting. They start the day manually exporting orders from Shopify.
Okay, so that's the first thing.
First thing, then they switch screens to the ERP system and manually punch in all those orders one by one. That takes them through to about 8:30, maybe 9 a.m.
And I'm guessing that's where the problem starts.
Immediately. By mid-morning, they're finding duplicate orders because the two systems have no idea what the other is doing in real time. The rest of the day is just a mess. Manual inventory syncs, fixing back orders, correcting invoices.
It sounds like a full-time job just patching the gaps between the software. What did that actually cost Aussie Tech?
It was devastating. They lost $847,000 in revenue.
Wait, say that again?
Over just 2 months, they lost $847,000. And that money wasn't, stolen. It just evaporated because their systems couldn't support real-time decisions.
That is the definition of a hidden killer. And that's just one of them. What are the others?
Well, the next one is opportunity cost. It's a killer because you never see an invoice for it.
Right. It's the stuff you could have been doing.
Exactly. Every hour your best Aussie developers spend building some brittle, one-off integration fix, that's an hour they are not spending on your core product. Our sources show firms doing that are 35% slower to market with new products.
So while your competitor is launching a new feature, your best people are just trying to keep the lights on.
Precisely. Which leads right into killer number 2, compound technical debt. And this isn't just an IT problem, this bleeds straight into the P&L.
Why isn't it just an IT problem? I think a lot of execs hear tech debt and just tune out.
Because those quick fixes are like taking out a high-interest loan. Gartner predicts that by 2026, 80% of software debt will be architectural. The very foundations will be flawed.
Wow.
We're talking 61 billion workdays of tech debt globally. For a 50-person Aussie firm, that means unpredictable costs and, eventually, a massive mandatory rewrite budget in a few years.
That definitely makes it a boardroom conversation. Okay, and killer number 3 sounds terrifying, especially with the new rules coming in here in Australia.
The security time bomb. This is non-negotiable. APIs are the highways for data, which makes them the #1 way breaches happen. 99% of organizations have had an API security incident.
And in Australia, the cost of a breach is what?
It's about $3.35 million on average. But with the Privacy Act changes in 2025, you could be looking at fines up to $50 million, or 30% of turnover.
So without proper API governance, you're not just inefficient, you're being.
Financially reckless, absolutely. It's why 82% of organizations have already moved to an API-first model. The laggards are already falling 70% behind.
It really does sound like mandatory survival at this point. So if the cost of doing nothing is so high, let's talk about the solution. API first. Break it down for an executive, no jargon.
The simplest way we explain it is build roads before houses.
Roads before houses.
Okay. Instead of building your applications and then trying to duct tape them together later, you design the APIs, the roads first. This ensures every system uses the same secure, standard way to communicate from day one.
Which implies it's faster and reusable. Let's use an example. A new customer portal pulling data from, say, 3 different legacy systems.
Right, the traditional way. You're looking at months of sequential work. You build the portal, then spend weeks wrestling data from the CRM, more weeks on the ERP. You're lucky to launch in 5 or 6 months.
And with the API-first approach.
You design the APIs first, the roads for customer data, orders, and payments. Then you build the portal to consume them. You can launch in 6 to 8 weeks. And the best part, 6 months later, when you need a mobile app, you just plug it into the same roads. The infrastructure is already there.
That's the ROI. Let's talk about that, the measurable outcomes for executives. What have Australian firms actually seen?
The results are pretty compelling. A Sydney healthcare provider, they used this for their telehealth platform. They cut patient wait times by 67%. That alone drove an $18 million increase in annual revenue.
$18 million, just from making things run smoother.
And in retail, a Melbourne company used APIs to unify their inventory data. That led to a 72% drop in stockouts.
Which means more sales.
A 23% rise in conversion rates, to be exact. It added $6.4 million in incremental revenue. The sales were always there, they were just being blocked by bad data.
Okay, that's top-line growth. What about the operational side, the cost savings?
Huge savings. We see a 30 to 40% workload reduction in finance teams from automated reconciliation, about 52% fewer manual data entry errors. And then there's risk. A Brisbane firm we looked at avoided a $3.2 million breach because they had proper API monitoring.
So if you add all that up, the manual work, lost sales, tech debt, error costs.
Yeah.
You said the total cost of inaction for a 50-person business is around $861,000 a year.
That's the cumulative penalty. But the good news is, for a proper API-first strategy, the payback is fast. We're talking 2.5 to 4 months. After that, it's over $680,000 a year in savings and advantage.
Okay, so if the solution is that clear, why are so many projects still failing? This brings us to a new threat in the market, something you call the AI Cowboy risk.
This is so important. There's a flood of freelancers and agencies offering dirt-cheap development using AI code generators. We call it vibes coding.
Vibes coding, I like that. They promise the world for next to nothing.
Exactly. Custom software in 24 hours, 90% cheaper. But there's zero architectural rigor. It becomes exponentially more expensive down the line.
Why? What's the fundamental flaw?
AI code just lacks architectural judgment. It's trained on any old code it can find, which means about 45% of what it generates contains known security vulnerabilities. You're building your house on quicksand.
Is there a real-world example of this failing?
Absolutely. A Brisbane e-commerce company had an AI-built checkout. It worked fine on a Tuesday afternoon. But on Black Friday, under predictable peak load, it just collapsed. Oh, no.
They lost $340,000 in sales instantly. It works right up until the moment you need it most.
And that's what creates that massive tech debt bubble you mentioned.
It does. AI tends to copy and paste code. We've seen an 8-fold increase in duplication. This makes the system impossible to maintain and a ticking security time bomb.
You call it the 18-month cliff. What happens then?
For the first few months, everything seems great. But around month 9, new features start breaking old ones. By month 18, development has completely stalled. You're then forced to hire professionals to rebuild the whole thing at 3 to 5 times the original cheap cost.
And the security side of it.
It's a catastrophe waiting to happen.
Yeah.
We audited a fintech startup where their cheap AI integration had 23 critical vulnerabilities post-launch. The developer who used the AI tool couldn't even explain how it was built.
The Perth Sauce case study you mentioned seems to sum this all up.
It's the perfect cautionary tale. A $15,000 AI MVP ended up costing them over $762,000 in remediation, fines, and lost customers. The short-term saving created massive, unmanageable long-term risk. This is where we have to talk about the difference in approach. The C9 distinction. It's not just about building something, it's about knowledge transfer.
Right. Transparency is everything. We focus on meticulous documentation, self-explaining code, and training sessions so your team understands why it was built that way. We use AI tools for augmentation, for boilerplate stuff, never for core architectural decisions. That's professional engineering versus vibes coding.
So if someone listening is convinced they need a professional approach, where do they start? What's the biggest mistake they can make right now?
The single worst mistake is skipping the discovery phase. You wouldn't build an office tower without blueprints. It's the same thing. Discovery maps your systems, prevents scope creep, and critically, it finds the quick wins for early ROI.
And that early ROI is what makes it viable for an executive, right? It helps the project fund itself.
Exactly. The discovery might show that integrating your CRM first will save you $18,000 a month in stage 1. You then use those savings to fund stage 2. It becomes a self-funding strategy.
Okay, so when an exec is choosing a partner, what is C9's edge? What guarantees that budget stability and quality?
It's our blended hybrid model. Businesses often face a false choice: super expensive local talent or risky, cheap offshore teams. We blend the best of both.
What does that actually look like for the client?
You get Australian senior architects for all the high-level strategy, governance, and business hours communication. They then leverage our top-tier offshore specialists for the deep technical work and scale. So you get Australian quality assurance at a much more efficient global price.
And that model is built on a methodology you've used on, what, over 500 projects?
That's right. It's a structured risk mitigating process, deep discovery for 2 to 3 weeks, then foundation for 4 to 6 weeks where we lock in the API design and security, then phased implementation, targeting the high-value stuff first for that early ROI.
And finally, let's hit the big one: budget transparency. So many executives get burned by vague quotes that just balloon.
We reject that completely. A vague range like 65K to 95K almost always ends in a huge cost overrun. We use a paid discovery phase, a small investment that's often credited back to produce estimates with plus or minus 5 to 10% accuracy.
So that upfront investment is really an insurance policy against budget blowouts.
Precisely. It locks in accountability. That investment pays for itself 2.7 times over just by ensuring budget stability and prioritizing the right work first.
So for you, the listener, the choice seems pretty clear. You can keep tolerating these disconnected systems, losing $50,000 a year per failure, or you can implement a strategy that delivers a 78% faster market advantage.
Look, integration isn't just tech plumbing anymore. It's the core mechanism for competitive agility in this market. So the question to ask is, can your business really afford to fall 70% behind your competition by sticking with brittle, disconnected systems?
Take that first step. Transform your integration from a liability into your biggest competitive asset. We're encouraging all Australian business owners and C-level executives to book their free 60 to 90-minute discovery call today.
We are C9 Australia's leading custom software apps integration and database developer company.
You can find all the details and book that call at www.c9.com.au.
And please, click that follow button and share this deep dive. Share it with others in your network who need to hear this.
We'll see you next time for the next deep dive.